We're living in the last days. Biblically, the end times would be the tribulation period, but last days are the time up until the tribulation period. So we're in those last days right now. Viewer discretion is advised here. They will be talking about graphic things, but I think you need to hear this to know what's really going on right now.
We find a concentration of 8 babies.
They came in here and slaughtered about 10% of the residents of this kibbutz.
They found a mother lying, protecting a baby, and she was shot in the back, and the baby was...
News gained access to one of the Israeli communities targeted in the initial attacks from Gaza. CBN's Chuck Holton went to see firsthand the destruction of this once peaceful farming community.
Children's toys lie scattered in the midst of shell casings and burned out cars. The smell of death lingers in the air, a pungent reminder of the hellish attack just over a week ago. Colonel Golan Vash gave a tour of the village, describing what he found when his team first arrived, only hours.
Again, just viewer discretion is advised here. They will be talking about graphic things, but I think you need to hear this to know what's really going on right now.
After the area had been retaken from the terrorists.
We found a family outside, exactly where you're standing right now. But it was only the beginning of what we saw inside. In this corner of this living room, we find a concentration of 8 babies burned among...
I want to remind you, those of you that are supporting Hamas in the chat right now, this is the despicable, vile acts that you're supporting. Absolutely despicable, satanic. I've already argued the case. This is a satanic spirit. There's no other explanation for this. Pure incarnate evil these terrorists are. And those of you that are, oh, Hamas is gonna, they don't care about you. This is despicable what we're hearing about here.
15 other people.
They came in here and slaughtered about 10% of the residents of this kibbutz. These are children, old people, and you can just see the incredible destruction that was wrought here. And the last terrorist was cleared out of this kibbutz a week after the initial attack.
So think about that. A week after the attack, did you hear what he said? The terrorists were still in this village hiding. And what happened was they were clearing out the terrorists, and then the terrorists would be hiding for days, pop out and start killing people. It was just absolutely horrific knowing there's a terrorist in our village for a week. And this is just absolutely crazy.
So their plan was to use it as a bargaining chip and to take everyone hostage here. Instead, they got an incredible battle as soldiers from the IDF came in and killed all of the terrorists.
I think that some of the terrorists who come hiding in the houses, for example here, wait silently in a high readiness for 12 hours or 16 hours, and then they get up. So every time that we saw that we cleaned the area and everything was silent, suddenly another 12 or another 20 got out. Yeah.
So he said they were hiding for a week and they thought it was cool, and then all of a sudden 15 or 20 would pop out and start terrorizing the town again.
When the village was finally cleared, rescuers turned to recovery, and what they found will stay with them for the rest of their lives.
I found a mother lying, protecting her baby, and she was shot in the back, and the baby was beheaded.
You've been all over the world. You respond to rescues and crises. Describe how this compares to what you've seen around the world.
Nothing compared to that. If we needed anything to convince us, we cannot use the same democratic tools that the world use. It's not the human rights that you in your mind think of. Right now, there is no place for feeling. We are professionals. We need to achieve our goals, and our goal is to ensure that the Hamas organization is no longer exist.
This is what we're talking about here.
And I want to also say, for those that don't know, the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, have an official an autopsy, basically, center where they're bringing all these bodies in to confirm. So the 40 babies beheaded story was confirmed by the Israeli Defense Forces spokesman. I watched that video earlier saying, yes, we did an autopsy on all of these babies, and we confirmed they were beheaded, and their parents were in the room watching, because, again, these are terrorists that want to inflict as most brutality as possible. So they're saying we're going to make the parents watch us behead their babies, and then the parents are killed after. So again, it's horrific. Some of the stuff that they talked about, I won't even repeat, just because it's just so dark that it's like, oh, it's so dark. But yeah, for those of you saying that was CNN said that was a lie. Number one, I'm going to show you a story from CNN because I want you to hear a guy's testimony. But CNN is probably the worst news station you can listen to. Literally, the Clinton News Network is CNN. So we already know they constantly lie. They're the worst news network. And if you're getting your facts from CNN, you should probably find a new news source to listen to.
You see these pictures of people with their babies, their children.
These are real people. Guys, these are real people. Pictures of children in the house. These are not far off, detached, like fake people. These are real people like you and me with families, with loved ones, and their village is destroyed. Pictures of the loved ones. So again, those of you Hamas that are defending this garbage, look at these pictures and say, you can defend that. And I want to also say the celebrities that are defending Hamas, if you want to know what side to not be on, look at the side celebrities are on. Look at the side the alphabet community's on. And then you'll know, oh, I probably shouldn't be on the side of all these satanic celebrities. Like it's a very good way to know what side to be on. The celebrities that are full of Satan are on Hamas's side. Maybe that's not the right side of history. Maybe I'm on the wrong side of history.
Wanted to live a peaceful life. And on the 7th of October, that peace was shattered. And now their home looks like this.
All this region, we must clear from this kind of threat if we want to provide our citizens the security, the protection that we could not give them last Saturday.
The battle to retake Be'eri may be over, but the war is just beginning. And as these IDF troops marshal their forces within sight of the massacre, every one of them knows exactly what they're fighting for. From southern Israel, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
These are disturbing images, but don't turn away. Don't look away from the horror of what occurred and is still occurring. The rockets are still falling in Israel. We can't turn away from this. Centuries ago, there was a Canaanite religion that offered up babies into the fire. And when you see babies burned to death, when you see babies
100%.
Beheaded, call it for what it is. We are looking at the face of evil.
Yes.
Now, the same perpetrators, the same people that did that burned children, were shouting, God is great. That's what Allahu Akbar means. That is no great God. We are looking at pure evil, and it needs to stop. Future generations will look at us and say, what did you do?
100%.
When you were faced with that kind of...
And I want to say to the mods, if there's anyone in my chat right now supporting Hamas or being like, this isn't false, Hamas isn't bad, feel free to instantly ban them because you're despicable if you're supporting a terrorist organization. That's all I have to say. There's 5,100 people live right now on Facebook and YouTube. You don't need to be here. Okay, if you want to come in here and start supporting Hamas, you don't need to be here. We're just going to ban you from the chat. You can go find another news source that you want to watch.
Evil, you had vowed never again. What did you do to stop it? I want to be able to answer them to say, we stood in our generation, and we stood for truth. We stood for life. We come against any culture of death because that is what this is.
I want to also show you now a story from a father who's, again, I don't watch CNN, but they covered a story of a father that was inside this village when this all happened. So I want to show you that. This is beyond sad.
Offensive operation. I'm sure that we ask ourselves all the difficult question after it.
For now, there are more pressing questions. The bodies of more than 100 residents have been recovered, but the army says that many more are still missing.
You can see the amount of blood. This was a massacre.
And the full scale of the horrors that transpired here are just starting to come to light.
Pictures, family photographs on the wall.
This is that same village that we just looked at that was first attacked, a small farming village of about 1,000 people. This is that same village here.
Thomas waited 2 agonizing days before getting the news.
They just said, we found Emily, She's dead. And I went, yes! I went, yes, and smiled.
I want you to see what just happened here. This guy had an 8-year-old daughter in this village that was sleeping over at a friend's house. And they said, we found your daughter and she's dead. And he screamed, yes. I'm going to replay this, and I want you to catch this, how horrific this is. Having an 8-year-old myself, I just can't even imagine.
We're getting the news.
They just said, we found Emily. She's dead. And I went, yes! I went, yes, and smiled. Because that is the best news of the possibilities that I knew. That was the best possibility that I was hoping for. She was either dead or in Gaza. And if you know anything about what they do to people in Gaza, that is worse than death. That is worse than death. The way they treat you. They'd have no food, they'd have no water. She'd be in a dark room filled with Christ knows how many people, and terrified every minute, hour, day, and possible years to come. So death was a blessing, an absolute blessing.
Makes me sick, man.
Clarissa Ward, CNN, Be'eri Kibbutz, Israel.
I want to actually show.
I want to bring in now Ahal Besoria.
We missed
His
his
8-year-old daughter
Here it
at
is.
ease and in no apparent hurry.
I missed the story. I apologize.
Thomas Hand heard the gunshots and immediately thought of his 8-year-old daughter Emily, who was staying with a neighbor.
She doesn't do it very often, but unfortunately that night, that particular night, the Friday night, she went to sleep at her friend's house.
For 12 hours, he says he was pinned down under heavy gunfire, unable to reach his daughter, as Hamas went door to door executing.
These people are demonic animals, fully incarnate with Satan and his spirit, and I have no words. It's absolutely sickening.
His neighbors.
Waiting. I'm thinking the army are going to be here soon. You know, just hold on a bit longer. And longer. And longer.
By the time the military gained control of Be'eri, this is what remained of the once tranquil community. Late Wednesday afternoon, Israeli forces let journalists in for the first time.
Now this will make more sense
getting
here.
the news.
They just said, we found Emily. She's dead. And I went, yes! I went, yes, and smiled. Because that is the best news of the possibilities that I knew. That was the best possibility that I was hoping for. She was either dead or in Gaza. And if you know anything about what they do to people in Gaza, that is worse than death. That is worse than death. The way they treat you. They'd have no food, they'd have no water.
Oh man, it's so sad. Again, this is what you're supporting. The reason why I'm showing this is I want to show you guys this is what you're supporting when you're in the chat saying Free Palestine and that you're supporting Hamas. So here's, let's see, what's this one? Let's watch this. I have a few queued up here. We'll watch.
From the Israel-Gaza border is Chaim Mailspin. He is a member of the IDF's Yahalom unit, which is one of their special operations forces.
So this is a few hours ago posted, and this is just updated current what's happening right now.
Chaim, thank you so much for being with us. There was news yesterday that because of the rain and the low cloud cover, that any ground operation was going to be delayed. The big question across Israel that everybody is asking is, when might this ground operation begin? What can you tell us?
Yes, I know we're all ready. We're trained. We are prepared. We don't want to be here. You know, we have families. I have 3 little kids. Made my immigration from America, 25 years ago here, Jewish family. But we have to defend our kids. We have to secure our borders.
So this is a soldier, one of the generals, saying, this is what we're fighting for. We don't want this war. We didn't choose this war, but we have to fight for our children. We have to fight for our families. And I would do the same thing. I would do the same thing. I'm not going to lay down and let these terrorists come in and just kill my wife and kids and family. So how could you blame Israel right now? How could you be like, well, you don't understand. Understand what? That a terrorist organization infiltrated a nation. Now the nation's responding and you guys are mad about that? That Hamas is a terrorist group according to the United Nations and pretty much every other country identifies them as a terrorist group?
And yes, we are doing our part. Our unit specializes in rescue and all kinds of special missions that the regular army isn't prepared for. But yes, I did hear word that it is delayed. The major entrance
this is from
delayed
today.
To dismantle Hamas is delayed for a few more days. It's unclear exactly. I believe it's Shabbat now.
Okay, someone in the chat said, I just lost it because there's so many of you commenting right now. Saying free Palestine is not the same as siding with Hamas. That is no different than a small terrorist group attacking Canada then blaming all of America. Brother, Hamas literally runs Gaza. Gaza is fully under the control of 30,000 terrorists. What are you talking about? They run Gaza. They're controlling Gaza. That's on record. So, yes, free Palestine from the power of Hamas. But to say Hamas is a small terrorist organization, you haven't done any research on Hamas, their political power or their military power, or their ties with Hezbollah and ISIS and Iran and every other terrorist group. So I don't know what you're saying there. You should want Hamas to be destroyed and then have a legitimate government established in Gaza. Because right now it's being ran by a terrorist group. So Israel already, I think in 2005, gave up the Gaza Strip, said you guys can have it. And Hamas came, threw the leaders off of buildings and took over. So what do you mean Hamas is a tiny terrorist group?
Coming up Saturday, that we actually will have the major, of course, you know there are missions going in that we don't talk about, but they're the big one is supposed to be in a few days, not tonight. Here's the thing is we have to recognize we got to be good shepherds. There's a shepherd over us, right? And America understands that. I think that people that haven't had enemies at their door for a long time fell asleep. They forgot what it is to have enemies. And so when you have a real enemy, you need to address that. You need to stand up and be a good shepherd yourself. And so that's what we're doing.
Hi, this is Sandra Smith in New York. Thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, very difficult conditions for you to come to us live. We appreciate that. As we continue to realize that this ground invasion into Gaza is imminent, and you've got these major evacuation orders out of northern Gaza into southern Gaza, 1.1 million people. This is a huge operation. The tunnel system. Can you talk to our viewers about Hamas's extensive tunnel system under Gaza?
And then for those of you that are like, well, Hamas doesn't run Gaza, they literally have tunnels throughout the entire city. How do they?
And what that will mean once this ground invasion eventually occurs?
Oh, there's definitely a lot of information that I am a sergeant major in the combat engineer elite force. I'm not an official spokesperson. I can say I do speak English, Jewish man. And here's the thing I can say, having been in many tunnels, having done this for many Khan, cast lead, in many, many wars and missions, including in Lebanon in 2006, I can say that our unit knows that
I'm going to give you guys 7 reasons after this biblically why we should stand with Israel. Not just in this situation, but period.
Real. I mean, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible would have a very hard time to deal with the tunnel threat. I'm telling you what, it's intricate, it's a labyrinth, it's all booby-trapped. There's some concern that Russians supplied mega bombs.
And I want to also add, they've already found that the terrorists are using, just to throw this in there, weapons that we left in Afghanistan when Biden pulled out of and left all of our weapons there. You guys already know that whole debacle that happened. These terrorists are already confirmed are using our weapons. Yes, our weapons, our taxpayer dollars that bought the weapons, the terrorists are using it when we left them in Afghanistan. That's a whole nother day. And you guys know I'm not a political stream. This is the first time I even probably have ever talked politics like this on my platform. but this is just so despicable and demonic. I have to talk about this.
Maybe awaiting under the ground even before we get to the tunnel. So there's a lot of speculation. I can't give exact information. I can say that we're doing our absolute best with the top precision. I know that we looked really good. We looked really good recently. Now it's time to show these criminals, these grotesque terrorists, that terror will not, that is not going to continue. Our families will be safe and security will be restored.
Yeah, you know, I know, Haim, that in the past couple of days, the Israel.
All right, let's go to, let me take this off. Let's go back to, let me think of what I want to do here. Let's go back to talking about Israel, and then I'm going to share a little bit of the end time stuff.